My husband's been taking inappropriate photos. I feel like I don't know him. My husband Toby and I met in 2018 when we were 27. We were only dating for a couple months when he moved in. He was great, so sweet, thoughtful, helpful, kind, and I fell in love hard. We got engaged after only 7 months. We did the whole when you know justification, and anyways, hindsight is always 2020. We got married near our 1 year together anniversary in 2019. It was only 2 months in when I got pregnant with our daughter, Susie. We moved in with my parents to save money, and luckily we did, as the world shut down when I was 6 months pregnant. I had to have a C-section, and this is important for later. Due to that time in history, when I was on maternity leave, Toby was also off work. We spent the entire first year of Susie's life off together every day. When she was about 6 months old, we moved into the townhouse I'm still in. That's when the bickering started. Little things would set him off, and I started walking on eggshells. We would fight over money, personal time, division of housework, parenting, everything. I chalked it up to being around each other every day, all day. When I went back to work, I started a new job and excelled at it. I started making a lot more money and quickly became the breadwinner. I got him a job where I worked, and he slacked off and changed jobs after 6 months. I hadn't noticed that he frequently changed jobs every 6 to 9 months until much later. We were more like roommates at this point, miserable roommates who slept in the same bed. He frequently demanded alone time, and I was happy to oblige because he was always so miserable to us. It gave my daughter and me time to be able to be ourselves. We, by a miracle, because it was only once in 5 months, got pregnant with my son Frank in early 2022. During my pregnancy, I had a lot of issues. My body was not doing well with pregnancy. We fought constantly, and the stress was so bad that I had to go on sick leave a month before my due date. It was at the point that I could barely sit, had a hard time standing, could hardly walk, and laying down was agony. He was more helpful than before, but he would frequently guilt-trip me and make me feel like I owed him and should worship him for doing everything for me. I had my second C-section at the beginning of 2023. 10 days after I had Frank, Toby was yelling at me. I have a recording. That I no longer have an excuse because I'm no longer pregnant and I need to get off of my booty and contribute to the house to clean, cook, and do laundry. I started recording all of his tangents because he would gaslight me that he didn't say that. I didn't hear him right, and I'm crazy. Money was tight while I was on maternity leave. He had switched jobs and worked from home, constantly telling me I was lazy because I wouldn't do anything but take care of Frank and Susie. My postpartum depression was so bad. The intrusive thoughts were bad and intense, and looking back, he made it so much worse. I put Susie in daycare so I could manage Frank easier. A year that was supposed to be magical and beautiful was miserable, and I hated it. He was cruel and rude all of the time. I ended up going back to work 4 months early, hoping that making more money would lessen our fights because that must be what's causing our issues. I always justified his behavior, and this is when things get messed up. Timeline is important on this, so I'm going to do my best to keep the info organized. It gets messy. October 2023, I went back to work. We fought a lot, and he avoided hanging out with us on the weekends. He had another new job at this point, working in a family arcade place. This is important. We happily avoided him on the weekends. It was more stressful if he was around anyways. End of November 2023, I had ordered us a shed and checked the security cameras frequently to see when it arrived so I could run home and move it to the backyard to avoid it getting stolen. One day I looked on the camera and Toby's car was home. Weird, because he left when I did and he dropped Susie and Frank at daycare. I got the app notification confirming that. I called and texted him and got no answers. I got worried. I got off work and got the kids and rushed home, and he was making dinner. I asked him about being home, and he told me he went to work and they said he deserved the day off. That evening, his brother, sister-in-law, and their baby came to stay for the weekend. I couldn't shake the feeling he had lied to me. The next morning, I called my mom when I ran to get everyone's coffee. She said to trust my gut and to check the cameras for timestamps on the other days. Well, I did. He didn't go to work that entire week. The timing wasn't going to work and coming home. It was dropping the kids and coming straight home every single day that week. I got back to the house with coffee and was fuming. I asked him to come outside and chat. I asked him. He lied. I called him out. He lied again and again. Finally, he ended it with me being the reason he needed some time alone, and didn't tell me because I would react like this to him taking time off work. This time, his gaslighting didn't work on me, though. Trust was broken, and it had to be repaired. His brother and family left that day, and the next day, my kids and I went out shopping with my mom, giving Toby some space. Now, December 2023. On our way to her house, I realized I forgot something at home, and so we stopped and I ran in. Toby wasn't downstairs, but the baby gate was up. Odd, because I have the babies. I go upstairs, and the top baby gate is closed. Also odd. Then I noticed rolled towels at the bottom of our bedroom door. I was once a teenager. I know how to stop a certain smell from moving to other rooms. I opened the door, and he was standing at the end of our bed wearing a VR headset, smoking the devil's lettuce in our room where we and our baby sleep. So, the devil's lettuce is not illegal here, but I lost it. Not because he was smoking it, but because he didn't do it outside and chose to breathe it all over our baby's beds. Much after this happened, my friends pointed out what else he could be doing. My best guess is watching VR Corn, and the shock he had was because he thought that was what I would be mad about. Anyway, back to the storyline. I was mad. I left and told him as much. The kids and I went to my mom's for dinner, and when I came home that evening, he had moved all of his stuff into his office and locked himself in. Turns out he created a whole room for himself. It had a twin bed set up, went through the whole house, and put everything he felt was his into the room and locked the door, whether he was in there or not. After 2 days, I asked him, and he said our marriage was over. Over the next month, he would have violent and terrifying outbursts. He wouldn't help with the kids. He'd lock himself in the room. He'd take food and eat in there. There were no dishes left downstairs, and a smell was coming from the room. I called his brother, and he came from the island. An island? And convinced Toby he needed to take a vacation and go stay with them for a week. This was my idea to get him away from the kids and me. I had never been afraid, but was now and needed him out. My mom and I got into the room, and it was disgusting. We cleaned it up. While he was gone, his brother had him call me daily, and he was sweet and kind and apologized and said he wanted to make our marriage work. I agreed he could come home. It was all a lie. It was actually worse. It was worse when he came home. I have audio recordings of him screaming and yelling. I won't get into detail because most of it is a part of our court stuff now. Now I'm going to skip on over to Christmas Eve. He went to work. I was sick of him locking himself in his room. I changed all of the locking doorknobs to non-locking ones because our daughter spent an hour crying outside his door while he ignored her. I had decided he wasn't a tenant anymore and he needed to contribute to parenting and everything else or leave. The kids and I went to my mom's for Christmas Eve. When Toby got off work, I knew because that's when the phone calls came. He screamed. Screamed at me that I would regret removing his lock, that I don't deserve privacy, that he needs it, and I need to stay out of his room. He said he went and got a lock and that I can do the whole magic of Christmas by myself, and I'd be lucky if I ever saw him outside that room again. Needless to say, I was flabbergasted. I went home and snuck out all the presents for the kids, got us clothes and what we needed, and the kids and I spent the night at my parents' house and did Christmas morning there. I had texted him, informing him, and said he could come if he didn't start a fight. Anyways, he ended up moving out December 28th and stayed with his brother for a few weeks while he looked for a place. January through July of 2024, I essentially forced him to spend time with our kids. I had gone to court without him. He didn't reply to being served. It's a thing that because he didn't bother doing paperwork, he didn't get to go. I got a really good order from the judge, which included a conduct order because I showed her texts and videos he sent meant for the kids bad-mouthing me. Now, this is where it truly goes off the rails. July 2024. We had been getting along quite well for a few weeks, and he invited me to go with him and the kids to visit his family on the island. I went to the island. It didn't go great, and we fought. And without going into detail, he broke the conduct order by calling me horrible things in front of our kids. I put in an application for enforcement for the conduct order and had him served. Meanwhile, I had found my old tablet while cleaning up the house to turn Toby's old office into a room for Frank. I charged it up and turned it on. Toby's Gmail was logged in. I got nosy and noticed there were current photos. I scrolled and scrolled, and what I found made me rage. And so many photos, some of his junk, while we were married. You only really take those to send to people, and he sure wasn't sending them to me. Photos of him, photos of his bottom, photos of him in women's underwear. So many photos. None of those sent me into my rage. It was the photos of his sister-in-law while holding his brother's hand and her baby, of her rear end zoomed in and cropped in some photos. There were some of our daughter's soccer coach. There was our cleaner, my tattoo artist, some patrons of the arcade he worked at. All of their rear ends and all from January of 2023 when I had our son until current. I documented it and moved on. I had a tattoo appointment with my friend who was in the photos later that week. I told her about them and we laughed. Gross, but whatever, right? Then her husband laughed and suggested he posted them on some public butt Reddit forum and I should check the Reddit on the tablet. Well, folks, if you're still here, I apologize for the length and thank you for sticking it out because it's all honestly needed to get off my chest. Here's the thing. I didn't see any of the photos I had found. Instead, I found candid photos he took of my mother in her house 4 years ago of her face and cleavage. They had titles that still make my body shake with rage. Okay, I'm just going to skip them. I'd be very upset. This is teeth through the back of the head territory. I documented and deleted them, but man, I was angry. I confronted him via text, and his response was, "How did you find these? Where did you get these? I feel so exposed." A few times since I found them, he tried to tell me they didn't exist. They do. I have them in a secure folder on my phone, and my lawyer has them in case the divorce goes sideways. I never got an explanation about any of the photos, and I likely never will. I'm sure he cheated on me, but at this point, would it even matter? Over the next few months, we would continue our custody battle, with me trying to organize and get things sorted, and him ignoring me and weaponizing incompetence. I have filed for divorce. I currently have the kids 99% because his schedule doesn't work to have them, and moving in with his girlfriend and changing jobs for the third time since we split has made it hard for him to give them time. This guy's got to go. Crazy this guy's got a girlfriend. I plan on moving on with my life with the nicest guy I've ever met who adores my kids and wants them around however much we can. Court is imminent, but I'm confident because Toby has made it clear where his priorities are. He doesn't pay child support still, but there's a government program to enforce, so I don't have to chase him. I don't really have to even deal with him at this point because the parenting time we have in writing doesn't work for him. So he has to request taking them, which I would never prevent, but he simply doesn't try to see them, and I'm done forcing it. Sounds like a bad. I don't know. The sound of that room sounds like he regressed to the state of an actual teenager. You know,
that was his goal and dream. He's like, yeah, I've got my little girlfriend, and then I can smoke my stuff, and then I can play the VR games.
VR.
And yeah, then I'm happy. Yay! I have no job.
Yeah, dude, like,
he won.
You can't live the dream of a 14-year-old boy. Like, that's we got to change our dreams.
But he is, and that's where he's at.
We gotta let our dreams ebb and flow as we move through life.
We've got to lock it in at 14 and not deviate one freaking millimeter away.
Locked in at 14, unemployed gamer for the rest of my life.
Let's go.
Yeah. Oh, brother.
Yep.
Well, that's the end of that story, folks.